Is it love? Is it love? Baby, be mine. Is it love? Is it complicated? Be mine. Is it love? Is it love? Baby, be mine. Is it love? Is it complicated? Be mine. I should've never waited.
I'm Gamaliel Mwanza. I come from Petauke, Chimate Village, Chief Kalindawalo, Eastern Province in Zambia. I grew up in Petauke, went to Chipata, came to the Copper Belt, now I'm in Lusaka, and I met my wife on the Copper Belt.
My name is Joyce Mulapwa, maiden name, and then Mwanza, my husband's name.
Well, very interesting question. I worked for Victory Ministries for a couple of years. And in 1984, I was praying for a wife, and I think it should have been in September, if I can remember. I went to pray and fast. Today, people just, get up, run around. With me, I got very serious with the marriage. I didn't want something wishy-washy or today I'm in a relationship, get into another. So as I prayed, the Lord told me, you meet your wife in 2 years. So that was in September 84. And in September 1986, whilst we were having a banquet at the offices, we were praying, and she began prophesying. So in the midst of that, the Lord tells me, open your eyes. So I opened my eyes, and he told me, look to your right. So I looked to my right, and it was her. So having been with the ministry for years, and I'm asking myself, because she was a Bible school student, so I'm saying, God, what are you saying to me? A few days later, I'm in the office, and the Lord tells me, lift up your head. Now my door was direct with the other doors all the way to the dormitories where the ladies were. So God tells me, lift up your head. So I lifted up my head and looked, and it was her walking out of the dormitory, and I saw a hand pointing at her. That is your wife. Now, my reputation began when I was still a youth. So I said, me, proposing a Bible school student, what will she think? So, that status. So I went home and I prayed. I said, God, if it is her, you speak to her. I hate arguments, and for sure, even my whole life, I hate arguments. So in short, that's how we met. She came from Mufrira. In the name of going to Bible school, for me, God brought me a wife. Of course, before I met her, I tried to go to do some maneuvers to look for a woman. And every day when I would want to go to a church or where, I will have an assignment that blocked that. So I just concluded, God, this thing, you'll sort it out yourself. And that's what he did. So God brought her all the way from Muflira.
I saw my husband for the first time, I think in Kitwe, but he says they came to Mufulira to interview me with the late Pastor Tope Chirwa. Of course, I remember two men coming, but I didn't pay particular attention to him because I knew Pastor Tope Chirwa. And then when I went to Bible school at Victory Institute, I was there as a student, and I was quite serious in the things of God, and I was discerning a lot. And I knew for sure that this man is after me. I said, no, I don't want anything to do with marriage. While God was dealing with him, I was also dealing with myself, because for me, marriage was not anything priority. I was seeking the face of God, and I had my own plans. I think if anything, though I went to Bible school, I wanted to become a woman activist, just be single for a long time, and then later on look at marriage. So I knew, I discerned that this one is after me, without even telling me. And he was not even close to me, and I had plans to tell him. And the banquet he's talking about, I remember I was wearing a green maxi. I looked beautiful. By then, maxis were in style. And I think that's the day that I talked to him. I just went to him and said, I know what you want. I don't want. I told him straight out, but I don't know whether
it wasn't that day.
It wasn't that day. Anyway,
No.
It was another day maybe, but I told him that I know what you want, but I don't want. That's what I told him. And he asked me reasons. I said, I just don't want. And to make the story short, I refused him for 1 full year.
And I told her, if I loving you is sin, may God judge me.
Wow, it's a long story. In that struggle year, I remember I had 3 men in my life that were advancing. A student, him, and another person. And I critically analyzed them. I was very serious with God. My decision was I want to get married to a person that I will live with, even when the days get tough and hard. I want someone that will be strong and that will stand with me. I don't want a wishy-washy Christian. And I remember going through thoughts, and the one who came out, who was outstanding, was him, but I had said no to him. And I remember Dr. Nevas Mumba one day, he knew that I was refusing the proposal. So one day he just said, escort me. And I was saying, why is the man of God taking me? And I got in his Land Cruiser and he drove me around Kitwe. He drove for a long time. I said, I want you to tell me, Joyce, tell me, why do you like refusing Gamaliel? That shows that he's not a man. And I said, no, there's nothing. I just don't want him. And I remember I still didn't tell him. I didn't give him any answer. And then later on, the Lord spoke to me. He gave me a scripture from the book of Matthew, which talks about the beginning of Matthew, which talks about Joseph being embarrassed over Mary, and the angel visited him and so on. So that's the scripture that the Lord gave me. And God told me that he's a great man. Don't look at the outside, but he's a great man. I said, oh, really? I managed to alikana the whole year, so I didn't know what to do. So I decided to write how many pages?
What happened is that since God spoke to me, and for sure, in obeying God, I stood in for 1 year. So I remember then it was getting into 1987. I think it should have been in October. I got up at 02, because usually that's the time I have my devotions. That day, I didn't have my devotions. I woke up and I prayed. I said, God, you told me that Joyce is my wife. You know how she has embarrassed me, she has hurt me. I told God everything that she did. Now, I'm saying this for those that are seeking and you're in a rush. There are moments God will speak and things will not come out the way you expect them to be. So that morning I told God, I said, God, today I'm speaking to her last time. If she says no, that's no. If she says yes, that's fine. So at lunch, since we were operating, by then she had graduated and got employed by Victory. So that's just how serious things were. So at lunch, we talked and she said, no. I said, okay. Now, since I'd already told God, I didn't have time to begin to persuade like before. I simply told her, I said, Joyce, you've got things to do, and I don't want to be your hindrance. I have things to do. I don't want you to be my hindrance. This thing is over today. Bye. And I walked away. I went home. And of course, at 02, my room was so brightened that I could see the light with closed eyes. And I'm wondering, what's going on? And I heard a voice that just filled the whole room. There is a way that seems good in the eyes of man, but its end thereof is death. So I said, this is a scripture in the Bible, but who is talking to me? So I got up and I'm going through the Bible. So I didn't know what that meant. So later in the day, I realized it had to do with the decision I had made. But I didn't know what to do next because I had told her it's over. So I left things to God.
And then God dealt with me. Besides that, he was a good man, a good person. A long time ago, we never used to have cakes. You could only buy cakes from Superloaf. And he used to bring me gingerbread several times when I was a student. And each time I was in need, I would have no groceries or, soap he would bring me.
God would tell me, buy her this, buy her this. So I would go and buy and give her and walk away.
Yeah, so as a human being, he proved to be a good person, but I just didn't want. I think I just didn't want to get married. So when God dealt with me, and then I said, okay, so how do I do it? So I wrote, I think, an 4-page later, but
epistle.
Front, back.
You know those hardcover books? This side full, this side full, 5 of them.
Yeah, so I
mean 7 of them.
I explained myself, the reason why I was refusing, and I said sorry, and I said it was okay. It didn't take long. The next thing
the day that I got the letter, we were going for a leadership meeting. So she used to stay with one of the elders at church.
Yeah, Bishop Denson Chipash.
So he came with so excited, Gamaliel, what? So I'm wondering, what is this about? He gives me the envelope. And he pulls away my friend who is now in the States, Reverend Katebe, and he says, Shala. So I said, but you have come for a meeting, Shala. And they went laughing. So I'm wondering, he said, read that letter. So I insisted to go into their house. And he had already told Dr. Mumba that this one, first excuse him. And so I had to sit outside, read the epistle. I walked into the meeting, they were all laughing. Now, since God had dealt with me, remember, the brightness in the room, the voice that came, I did not want to argue with God. So that's how our relationship started.
Yeah, so the whole team, Victory Team pastors came with Dr. Mumba. And I remember I came out of the yard. And he kissed me on the road. Man had never kissed me in my life. I was embarrassed. And I said, so if a child can shift, and they were all happy. They were very, very happy. They were very happy for him. It's the first kiss that I ever got from a man. I said, And that's how it all started. But what I'm trying to say is our marriage actually was God sent. Because after now we have gone through all these years, we're now 34 years, will be 35 years at the end of the year. We have seen that indeed God put us together. Yeah.
One thing that I did before I went to talk to her, I told my pastor. Now, this may sound very unscriptural and spiritual to many. Me, one thing that I've learned is the submission, obedience. So I wanted to know my pastor to know what I was doing, having been one of his key people in his administration. So I said, my pastor, I've fallen in love and I'm interested in Joyce. So he laughed because in the pastoral, I was the only one who was single, no story.
Had no girlfriend.
No girlfriend. All I knew, wake up, Jesus is Lord, I'm in my Bible. And interestingly, from just as I was a youth, I've been in a big house. I was staying in a big house in Chimwemwe, and the women would come there. I've been proposed. How did you handle that? I don't know how, they will start talking about marriage. How I would twist things to be talking the Bible, I don't know. And eventually everybody said, there is something wrong with Gamaliel. He doesn't want to get married. And that's how. And God kept me that way. Well, when she said yes, I stayed with my late elder brother. He's late now. He was the firstborn. So I told him, and the first question he asked me was, where is she from? Now, my older brother was very, very critical with the where, he was more of my parent, I can say, because I stayed with him most of the time. He looked at me, smiled, and he left me. So I remained with my sister-in-law. And she says, my sister-in-law said, oh, that's very good. We're yet to see her. And business went on. I found somebody to go and talk to her parents. The question was, Namba we never Gamaliel. Baba kui. Bafumakui. And my mother-in-law thought I was Portuguese.
A Senegalese.
I was Senegalese because of my first name. So she can explain how they felt.
So for me, I was very free with my parents. And there's no favorite child, but I was very close to Dad because he named me after his mother. So we were relating a lot. So when he calls, we'll talk for 30 minutes, which my husband found to be very strange. So I told them that there's a man that will be coming. Oh. And they said, before he even comes, we want to see him. So that's how he was summoned. He came home in Flira. They just had a chat. And I remember my mom did a pot roast. He just took like a drumstick from it. Afterwards, Mom said, carry it for him. And we carried it to Kitwa. He didn't even know I was carrying his chicken. I said, here's the chicken that you left. Then afterwards, Mom said, Iwe, ishina Gamaliel. Kema Portuguese. I said, Mom, the name is in the Bible. Gamaliel is in the Bible. I showed her in the Bible. Then he said, where is he from? Which province? I said, it's from Eastern Province. Where are his relatives? I said, I just know his big brother in Quito. They said, there's no way a person can have just one relative in Quito, the entire Quito. He must be a Senegalese. By then we had a lot of Senegalese that were snatching Zambian girls. And he thought it was a Senegalese that had just taken up the name Mwanza, but I assured her. So my parents being Christians, I'm a pastor's kid. They took me to the Lord in prayer, and that's how the whole procedure started. He sent a Shibukombe, and the whole process started.
My mother was very anxious. She came to Kitwe, of course, for treatment. And when she came home, I was in Chimwemwe. Now, my work wasn't really staying in the office. It was visiting people. Her anxiety was, Lomba, wamena mwana kazi, wechifuna mwana wangu. Alikuni, so everybody knew where the office was. They gave her directions. I don't know whether she came with someone. She couldn't wait that I take her to see her. she had to come to the office to see her. And when she came, she only found my friend who is in the USA now. And of course, my friend knew my mother. So she introduced herself. Because at the village, they fail to pronounce the whole name. They say, Gamaliel Mwanza. So my friend said, no, he's gone for work. I heard. And so that's when my friend called her and they talked. That's how anxious and happy my mother was just to hear I'm getting married. Why was she so anxious? It's because I was the last to get married. Our last born, I think, has 4 grandchildren. I don't have one yet. I married late. In my generation, I married last. So the whole family were, that girl should be very special. That's how excited they were.
Yeah, but thinking of it, I don't think he married late because he was 32 years. 32 now. Men are marrying at 35, 40 and so on. But then people were getting married earlier. So that's how come he looked, they looked at him as marrying late. And the other thing, by the way, that made me not to say yes, I thought he was too big for me. There's 8 years difference. So I thought he was a very big man. I wanted someone that is maybe 1 or 2 years older than me. But one thing that I know, I've realized is that doesn't matter. He doesn't look. That 8 years difference doesn't show. One has to be a friend, and all these years won't pass. And the other thing that I was particular about was I didn't want a short man, someone that is shorter than me. So I kept on getting close to him just to measure myself on the shoulder, and I realized he's 1 or 2
Even today,
inches.
there is that competition. I'm taller than you. So I just look. Oh yeah, looking at the way we were doing things, our plans, because the ministry at that time were all busy. So the issue of having an engagement at first was not in our program. We just wanted to do a kitchen party, go for a wedding. And one day the Lord tells me to visit a couple. Now, it wasn't in me to visit one family twice in a week. So I went, I got home. 2 days later, God tells me to go back to see that couple. So I said, are they okay? Now, they're a couple, I'm single. So what do I discuss? How do I begin marriage issues with them? So I went back. I said, is everything okay here? And they were laughing. That day they laughed. Now I'm wondering why they were laughing. So, of course, we just continued talking. And I remained with the man, the husband to this woman. So he asks me a question. Abusa, do you have plans to have an engagement party for your before you wed? So I said, I don't have the finances. I would rather just, wed. Then the wife came, sat. So he looked at the wife and they both smiled. So I'm wondering, what is it? Then they say, God spoke to us to sponsor your engagement party. So just tell us the number of people, where you want it to be. We'll do the rest. Whoa, I'm shocked. So quickly, I passed to where she was staying and I told her, I said, that couple wants to do this. And interestingly, they had a number of people before we told them who should come to the engagement party. So I went back, I said, we are inviting 40 people. He said, that's the number God gave us.
Boy, came to 50.
Yeah, so how I got the money, where the money to buy the engagement ring, I can't remember. But they just did the food and everything. I had to find the money to buy the ring. to date, I can't remember how I got the money. And the ring was costly.
It was Zambian gold.
Yes.
Very nice ring, Zambian gold with Zambian stone. Very beautiful.
So I went around Kitwe, I couldn't find one. Came to Ndola, I couldn't find one until somebody told me, there's a young man there who makes rings. So I went to him, I said, you? Oh no, I bought the ring in Ndola. I needed to get something that just satisfies my heart. She would be happy with it.
He asked me what size it was, and he also asked me what type of ring I want, whether it's gold or silver. I said, I've always loved gold. That's why he looked around for a gold ring. And it was, 18 what? Carats? Yeah, whatever they call it, yeah. It was a very beautiful ring, and I was happy. And I remember this very couple made me a very beautiful pink dress, very beautiful. And the party was very nice. It happened in Riverside in Kitwe. We were very happy. And it was a good surprise for us. You know, our life has been full of surprises from God using other people. Even when I was in Bible school, I don't know who paid for me up to now. I was just told somebody has paid your for your course and so on, for your training. And even the the bridal shower, which we had, I had a proper English bridal breakfast at Aunt Eva Sanderson. She just said, I want you on this day. I want to find out something from you and bring maybe one or two relatives. So I thought maybe she was trying to probe me to find out. Just find out that there were people there. We had it in the garden and they had brought stuff for us. So in all this, we've seen how that God prepared this marriage. Eesh. It was not easy. You know, things are so easy now. You can go anywhere and get anything. It was very difficult to get a wedding dress, and it was even to hire, it was very, very expensive. So I managed to get a wedding dress, everything full set.
Somebody called the office. Gamaliel, where are you? I said, I'm in the office. You know, those days, the 80s, there were no cell phones.
Mm-hmm. It was a land phone.
It's a land phone. Where is Joyce? So I told her where she was. Can you tell her to come and try the wedding dress? I said, what? Mm-hmm. Tell her to come and, it was shocking. So she went. She was looking for a particular shoe to wear for the wedding. And I remember Mrs. Sanderson
was in the US then?
Yes, they went for a conference. The whole office team went to USA. I remember manning the office. She bought the shoe and she goes to the hotel. God tells her, that shoe is not yours for Joyce. So things this one comes, God told me. So it was a God told me wedding.
Yeah, but we also had a lot of hurdles. By then, anyway, everything came up to where it was, but it was not that easy. I remember in that year, in 1988, there was Newcastle disease, meaning there were no chickens, the whole Zambia.
Even beef.
Yeah, we had to go and buy chickens from Chingola, and we only managed 10. And the 10 went to the high table. The rest had beef. And the other thing that happened was that there were no drinks. So we only managed a few crates of Tarino and what? Tip Top. That's what we had. There was no Coca-Cola or Fanta in Zambia. And on the actual wedding days is what is very interesting. I wanted a bouquet, a fresh bouquet, Yama roses, and there was just one farm that was producing roses, growing roses, and that was at Victory Farm. And that week of the wedding, insects came and ate the roses. They ate all the petals. And Mrs. Mumba didn't know what to do. She was going to prepare that for me. She tried by all means. So when I was getting ready for the wedding, I had no flowers and time was going. And I just said, let's go. I don't care whether I have flowers or not. Time is gone. And I remember when I got to Kito Baptist, that's where we got married from, I saw Mrs. Mumba come with a book. Oh, sorry, Joyce, please forgive me. You know, the insects ate the flowers and the roses. But I have this fresh bouquet of daisies, very beautiful one, and she gave it to me. And when we entered, the time for rings came. And we didn't know whether... First of all, the chief baseman was not there. Where's the chief baseman? Guys, chief baseman, Jefferson Sichangwa wanted his suit. Kale, you could only buy from cereals or had your suits made. So they had gone, somebody was making their suits. So
I took the material to this tailor and he didn't do the job. So now you may ask me, what about you? Where did you get your suit? Like I've already said, it was a God-said wedding. This man drives to the office, says, Abu Simon, I know you are my pastor, but you are also my friend. You haven't told me about the wedding. When are you wedding? So I told him 3rd December. Have you already bought a suit? I said, not yet. Go to Sirius, pick a suit of your choice. So I was done, and I had to buy the materials for the best men, and the suits were not done. So we sat, what are we going to do?
3 were ready, but not for the chief best man.
So the chief best man decided to sit by the tailor. I'm not moving
Waiting
until...
on the last day. So he didn't show up in the photos.
So he delayed the wedding for 1 hour. And he's the one that had the rings in his pocket.
No, the rings were with John. When the time for rings came,
John had the
film for the camera.
And he's busy playing the guitar.
And there was no one taking photos.
The first part of our wedding, we have no photos because somebody forgot the film in his pocket. When we were done, almost, that's when he said, So everybody said he produces and it was very interesting.
Yeah, so Dr. Mumba said, I'm not going to proceed until I see a cameraman to taking photos. So that's when the bass guitarist, the late John, realized that he had the film. So he took it out. Mr. Schinga was a cameraman, and he put it there. And there were no videos there then. But a white man came and really wanted to shoot a black...
That was his first African wedding to attend.
Yes, but the batteries went flat. So there were a lot of hiccups that happened. But everything went on well. I remember again when going for pictures, they forgot to take my parents. Mrs. Sanderson said, you're not going to take any pictures. Go and get the parents. So they came and got the parents. Not that it was not organized. It was organized well. But there's what we call circumstance beyond control. And it really, really happened. But otherwise, everything went on well. It was a nice wedding, well attended by a lot of people. And God saw us through. He provided for us.
I see a new Africa.
No, that one is for coming in.
Oh, no.
The keyboard.
Bone, flesh of my flesh. Bone of my bone.
You are flesh of my flesh. Bone of my bone. There's no one closer.
It was exciting. I'm getting married.
But he looked double-eyed. When I saw him,
I could see my pastor, Dr. Mumba, look at me, and I think just because he knew the challenge went through. So just to arrive in that day, he looked and who takes this, who gives this woman to this man? The father says, I do, I walk, and it was praise the Lord.
Hey, to tell you the truth, I don't remember. I don't remember moving from the door there up to the altar there. No, I think, and it's a question I've asked myself. I wasn't like scared. I was bold enough. I just remember getting the church and I was there at the altar and people clapping, stuff like that. But I don't remember exactly the feelings that I had. I don't think I was scared or maybe anxious. No.
We've been married 34 years and we have 5 children, 3 girls, 2 boys. The first 2 are girls, then a boy, girl, then the last is a boy. They are wonderful children. The first 2 are married. The other 3 are not yet. And we just have a wonderful time with them.
A long time ago, bad. We had no formula whatsoever. And I remember the Lord having, speaking to me, telling me, you don't need the tit for tat language. Because and nobody I didn't want people to win when it came to talking. And I think I wanted to take that in marriage. So there was tit for tat. One thing you need to realize is that I'm talkative, but my husband is not talkative and he's an introvert. So most of the times he would keep quiet. And maybe he would bring in 1 or 2 words that would really hit me, and I'd go blah, 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 radio 4, just talking like that. And I realized that you can never win a battle by doing a tit-for-tat conversation. So I prayed about it for a long time. Lord, how do we resolve matters? How do we resolve it? And I came to a conclusion. There's a Bemba proverb that says, if you want to stay where it's cool, chilled, you have to make the effort to do that. And that's the principle personally that I have used. When a conflict gets heated, one has to keep quiet, to stop. And also, in the long run, we learned not to put things mutima. Like bring an issue. At the beginning, we would bring about an issue for a long time. You did this, you did that, and so on. And the enemy took advantage of that to make us quarrel a lot. But I tell you, being silent is golden. You don't have to win by talking. You don't have to be on top in a conflict. You can be down there, but you still win the battle. So for me, that's a principle that I use. And I think it has really worked for me.
Well, maybe briefly, my past has been very rough. And I was a very short-tempered person. I was a one that you would not start a fight with. Otherwise, you just need trouble. I got saved. That temper still was there, but I remember my last fight. It should have been 1974, 75. I made a vow I will never fight. Now I'm bringing this because most of us, we fail to resolve conflicts because of how you grew up or the surrounding that just affected you. So in that fight, why did I make a vow? I made a vow to avoid it to go to prison because I really beat up. I was fighting 3 people and I beat them. So, I just mean that one of them didn't go for work for 2 weeks. Just the fact. That's how bad that fight was. Even when I was going home, I was scared. How do I tell my parents this? Maybe the police will come and pick me. I was so scared. In the morning, the first thing I told my dad, this is what happened last night. He looked at me and he continued doing what he was doing. So when I gave my life to the Lord, I realized there is still this until I dealt with it. How? You see, you need to realize that number one, you are not that upright within you. Number two, you must realize that anything you insist on will build up strife, and eventually there is now what is called gender-based violence. So how do we resolve issues? Is to realize my righteousness could be an offense to my colleague or my friend, my spouse. Therefore, if it brings that conflict, I should be able to withdraw myself from the conflict for the sake of peace.
And I prayed, I said, Lord, this man should never touch me, otherwise he'll break me. And he has not beaten me, because those stories were very, very scary. I think the fights that we had were more verbal. Let me say they were verbal than physical. For me, I think what I need is just words of affirmation. That I love you, Joyce. I'll live with you forever. Those are needed for me, not as a backup, but to push me. Words of affirmation are very, very good. And we've come to that stage now where there's unison, there's unity, and a lot of compatibility, which we never saw before. But now we have a language where you would know, even before your friend speaks, you know that this is what he means. And the respect for one another, we have really enhanced that. And basically the words of affirmation that we are together and we run together.
We live in a very rough world, so words of appreciation that towards the tone of tenderness. You come from, rough, but some kind of, you see, in the Bible, Saul and David, the women sang a song. So some kind of that kind.
Two things. Number one, he's God-fearing and loves God. He fears God. And I think that's one thing that I look for in a man, which has made me to be where I am and has inspired me. Number two, he loves family and he loves his children very much. I do appreciate that he has formed this family unit that is very difficult to break us as a family.
Well, one of the things I've appreciated in my wife is things when I want to ignore something, do away with it, she will just come and say, Vashilisa! And then she goes to where, so for family's sake, I said, okay, fine, we'll go that way. Secondly, her availability.
One lesson that I've learned in our marriage is that it's very difficult to succeed in marriage without God. God needs to be the center of every marriage.
The fear of God, the knowledge of God is the bond of marriage.
For me, the key thing, I'll speak to the women. Do not look at the raw man. That raw man has got so much potential in him, and it is you that can bring out that potential. Aba omeneri amonekeshanye alakumusamba fyo kumuwamia bamba nokumukungwa bambi. That's the principle that I've learned.
Key things, let me begin with the counselors. All of us come from different backgrounds, so the approach to counseling should be different, should be, that's what we do. Secondly, get to know the people you are counseling. Where are they? We were counseling these young people. We chased them. The reason, we realized there was no compliance to what we were teaching them. Why did we do that? We didn't want to be part of the mess. We told them. Therefore, in everything fear God and make God the foundation of your marriage. My name is Gamaliel Mwanza.
My name is Joyce Mwanza,
And this is how we met.